Tom Hanks is turning 70. For decades, he has been the face of kindness in Hollywood. The man audiences trusted, the voice that comforted generations, the actor who made the world laugh, cry, and believe in goodness again. From Forrest Gump to Saving Private Ryan, from Castaway to Toy Story, he built a career that felt almost untouched by scandal or chaos. But time changes everyone. Today, Tom Hanks lives a much quieter life than many people imagine.
The spotlight is softer. The schedule is slower.
His body isn't what it used to be. His health requires careful management. And like every man approaching 70, he carries the weight of years, loss, and reflection.
He still works. He still smiles. He still shows up.
But behind the public appearances is a man who has begun living differently. More cautiously, more privately, and more aware of time than ever before. If Tom Hanks has ever made you laugh, cry, or feel something real, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. Because legends like him deserve to be remembered, supported, and appreciated while they're still here. Now, let's look at the quieter reality of Tom Hanks at 70. Before he became a legend, Tom Hanks was simply a working actor trying to survive in Hollywood. He wasn't the typical leading man. He didn't have the brooding intensity of Al Pacino or the classic movie star mystique of Robert Redford. What he had was something far rarer: warmth.
He felt approachable, real, safe.
In the 1980s, he built his reputation through comedies. Big turned him into a household name. He played characters who were awkward, kind, and deeply human. Audiences didn't just watch him.
They trusted him.
By the 1990s, that trust had turned into something extraordinary. Philadelphia showed his emotional depth. Forrest Gump made him a global icon. Saving Private Ryan cemented him as a dramatic powerhouse. He wasn't just acting. He was becoming a symbol. For many viewers, Tom Hanks became the face of decency in an industry often known for excess. He played fathers, soldiers, survivors, and everyday men. And over time, people began to see him as something more than an actor. He became a comforting presence, someone who represented stability. But living up to that image isn't easy. When an entire world sees you as trustworthy and kind, there's an invisible pressure to remain that way. For decades, Tom Hanks carried that expectation. Interviews described him as humble. Co-stars described him as generous. Directors described him as tireless.
He worked constantly, film after film,
year after year. In his 40s and 50s, he seemed unstoppable. His energy on set was famous. Long shooting days didn't seem to slow him down. He balanced producing, acting, and voice work without appearing exhausted.
But no one escapes time.
As he moved into his 60s, subtle changes began to appear. The pace of projects slowed slightly. Interviews became more reflective. He began speaking more openly about health, aging, and taking care of himself. For most of his career, Tom Hanks moved at a relentless pace. There were years when it felt like he appeared in a major film every season. One project would wrap, another would begin. Locations changed constantly.
Schedules were tight.
The industry expected him to be dependable, prepared, and energetic every single day. And for decades, he delivered. But as he moved deeper into his 60s, the rhythm of that life began to change. Not dramatically. Not in a way that made headlines. It was more subtle, a gradual slowing that happens to nearly everyone who has spent years working at full intensity. Long shooting days became more tiring. Travel felt heavier. Recovery took longer. None of this meant he stopped working, but the pace required more thought. Instead of jumping from one demanding role to the next, he began choosing projects more carefully. He started prioritizing scripts that allowed him to work at a sustainable pace. Stories that interested him creatively, but also respected where he was in life physically. He had nothing left to prove, and that freedom allowed him to be selective. There were also changes in how he prepared for roles. In earlier decades, he would transform his body drastically if the story required it.
Weight gain, weight loss,
physical endurance training. But as he aged, extreme transformations became less practical and less safe. Maintaining stability became more important than dramatic change. He still brought discipline to every project, but there was a new awareness of limits. Not limitations that stopped him, just boundaries that kept him healthy. Friends and colleagues noticed the difference. He wasn't less passionate. He was simply more measured. He took more time between projects. He spent more days at home. He prioritized recovery in ways that weren't necessary when he was younger. Aging doesn't announce itself with a single moment. It arrives gradually, through small adjustments and quiet realizations. For Tom Hanks, Those realizations were less about decline and more about sustainability. He wanted to keep working for as long as possible, and that meant respecting the reality of time. He also began speaking more openly in interviews about the physical demands of filmmaking. Even roles that appear simple on screen can require long hours under hot lights, repeated takes, and weeks of travel. Doing that in your 60s is very different from doing it in your 30s. Yet he never framed these changes as complaints. If anything, he spoke with gratitude. He had been given a career that lasted decades, and he knew that was rare.
Still, the shift was undeniable.
The man who once thrived on constant motion was learning how to slow down without stopping completely. It was a delicate balance, staying active without overextending himself. By the time he approached 70, the pace of his life had settled into something quieter. He still worked regularly, but he also valued rest. He still appeared in public, but less frequently. He still traveled, but with more intention. In 2013, Tom Hanks publicly revealed that he had type 2 diabetes. It wasn't something that shocked those close to him, but it was a moment that reminded fans he was not immune to the realities of aging and long-term health. He explained that years of fluctuating weight for film roles likely played a role. For characters like Chuck Noland in Castaway, he gained and lost significant weight. At the time, it was seen as dedication to craft. But over the long run, those physical extremes had consequences. Type 2 diabetes is a condition that requires constant management. Diet becomes more structured. Exercise becomes more essential. Blood sugar levels must be monitored.
Routine becomes critical.
For someone with a demanding career, that kind of consistency takes effort. It doesn't mean life stops. It doesn't mean work ends. But it does mean every day involves choices that support long-term health.
What to eat, when to rest, how much to work, how much to travel.
Hanks has spoken about the diagnosis with honesty rather than drama. He didn't present himself as a victim. He described it as something to manage responsibly, a reality to accept and live with. Managing diabetes also changes how the body feels day to day. Energy levels can fluctuate. Recovery times can shift. Even small imbalances can affect how someone feels physically and mentally. For an actor, that means planning carefully, ensuring schedules allow for rest, making sure meals are consistent, avoiding extreme physical strain when possible. Over time, it appears that Tom Hanks adapted well. He became more mindful of his health. He focused on stability rather than transformation. He spoke about maintaining a healthier weight and avoiding the drastic changes he once embraced for roles. Living with a chronic condition doesn't define a person, but it shapes their routine. It adds an extra layer of awareness to daily life. For someone approaching 70, that awareness becomes even more important. It's not about fear. It's about responsibility. Hanks has continued to work steadily while managing his health. He appears in interviews with the same warmth and humor audiences expect. But behind that ease is a disciplined routine that helps keep him well. As he's aged, maintaining that routine has likely become more central to his life. Fewer extremes.
More balance.
More attention to what the body needs. There's something quietly admirable about the way he's handled it. No dramatic announcements.
No attempts to hide it.
Just a calm acknowledgement that health requires care. For many fans, it's a reminder that even beloved stars face ordinary challenges.
Aging, illness, adjustment.
The difference is that their lives play out in public, while most people face these changes privately. Tom Hanks has faced his with quiet determination. In early 2020, the world changed. And for Tom Hanks, the change became deeply personal. While in Australia for a film production, he and his wife Rita Wilson tested positive for COVID-19. At that time, the virus was still new and frightening. Information was limited. Fear was widespread. When the news broke, it made global headlines. Not just because he was famous, but because he was one of the first well-known figures to publicly confirm infection. For many people, it suddenly felt real. Hanks later described the experience in calm, measured terms. He spoke about fatigue, body aches, and the strange uncertainty of not knowing how the illness would progress. Both he and Rita were hospitalized for monitoring before recovering.
They did recover.
But the experience left a mark. For someone approaching 70 with an existing health condition, COVID-19 was not a minor scare. It was a reminder of vulnerability. A reminder that even strong, active people can face serious risk. After recovering, he returned home and gradually resumed work. But the pandemic changed the pace of life for everyone, especially older individuals in high-risk categories. Public appearances became less frequent. Travel became more cautious. Health precautions became part of everyday life. For Hanks, it was also a moment of reflection. He spoke about gratitude for recovery, gratitude for medical care, gratitude for simply being able to return home. The experience didn't end his career or dramatically alter his public image, but it likely deepened his awareness of health and time. Surviving a global pandemic tends to do that. It also changed how he interacted with fans.
Fewer crowded events.
More controlled environments. More distance when necessary. The man who once thrived in packed theaters and global premieres now moved through a world that felt more fragile. And while life gradually returned to normal, the awareness remained. For many people, the pandemic was a turning point. For Tom Hanks, it was a reminder that even a life filled with success can be interrupted by something entirely out of your control. He came through it with his humor intact and his work continuing. But experiences like that don't disappear completely. They become part of how a person sees the world moving forward. At nearly 70, Tom Hanks lives far more quietly than many people assume.
He still works.
He still appears in films. But the daily rhythm of his life has slowed considerably compared to his peak decades. The constant travel, back-to-back productions, and endless press tours are no longer the norm. Much of his time is now spent at home. Reading scripts.
Writing.
Spending time with family.
Taking walks.
Managing health routines. The pace is deliberate. For someone who spent decades surrounded by cameras, sets, and crews, a quieter life can feel both unfamiliar and necessary. It allows for recovery,
reflection, stability.
He has homes in California and elsewhere, spaces where he can step away from the noise of the industry. Places where he's not performing, not promoting, not constantly observed. Friends describe him as someone who enjoys simple routines. Coffee in the morning. Conversations with his wife. Time with children and grandchildren. Writing projects that don't require long filming days. The shift from constant activity to measured living is something many people experience with age. But for someone who lived so publicly for so long, the contrast is especially noticeable. He's not withdrawn from the world. He's simply more selective about how he engages with it. Public appearances tend to be tied to specific projects or causes. Interviews are thoughtful rather than frequent. Social media posts are occasional and lighthearted. He seems less interested in constant visibility and more interested in meaningful moments. There's a sense that he's protecting his energy, choosing when to be public and when to be private. That balance allows him to keep working without exhausting himself. For fans who grew up watching him everywhere, the quieter presence can feel surprising. But it's also natural. No one can maintain peak intensity forever. Eventually, life becomes about sustainability.
At home, he's not a global icon.
He's a husband, a father, a grandfather. Someone who values calm over chaos. Someone who understands that time moves differently in later years. The quieter daily life isn't a sign of decline. It's a sign of adaptation. A way of living that allows him to remain active while respecting the reality of age and health. Fame can look glamorous from the outside. For Tom Hanks, it has certainly brought opportunities, recognition, and a lasting legacy. But living with global recognition for decades carries its own kind of weight. From the moment Forrest Gump and Saving Private Ryan cemented his status, he became more than an actor.
He became a symbol.
People projected expectations onto him: kindness, wisdom, reliability. He handled that image carefully. Rarely scandalous. Rarely controversial. Consistently professional. Over time, maintaining that public trust became part of his identity. But living up to an ideal can be exhausting. It means being watched constantly. Being expected to be gracious at all times. Being recognized everywhere. Even simple activities, walking down a street, eating at a restaurant, can become public moments. As he's aged, that kind of visibility may feel heavier than it once did.
Not unbearable, but more noticeable.
More tiring. There's also the emotional weight of decades in the spotlight. Colleagues pass away. Industry changes. New generations take center stage. The world that once felt familiar shifts around you. For someone like Hanks, who has worked continuously for so long, that passage of time is deeply felt. He has outlasted trends. Outlasted eras. Outlasted many of the people he started with. Fame also creates distance. While millions feel they know him, very few actually do. That gap between public perception and private reality is something many longtime celebrities learn to live with. Over the years, He has navigated it with humor and humility. But the longer fame lasts, the more complex it becomes. It's not just about being recognized. It's about carrying a reputation built over decades. At nearly 70, he seems less interested in maintaining constant visibility and more interested in preserving what matters personally.
Family, health, meaningful work.
The weight of fame doesn't disappear.
But it changes shape.
It becomes something to manage rather than chase. Tom Hanks still stands as one of the most trusted figures in entertainment. But behind that trust is a man who has lived under public attention for most of his life, and who now moves through that attention more quietly, more carefully, and more thoughtfully than ever before. Long before awards and global recognition defined his public life, Tom Hanks built something far more important in private: a stable family and a lasting marriage. He met Rita Wilson in the early 1980s while working in television and film. Their connection grew steadily, and they married in 1988. In an industry where relationships often collapse under pressure, theirs endured. Decades later, they remain one of Hollywood's most recognizable long-term couples. But longevity doesn't mean perfection. A life spent in the public eye brings unique challenges to a marriage.
Constant travel. Demanding schedules.
Long periods apart during filming. The pressure of being recognized everywhere. Over the years, they learned to build routines that kept them connected despite the chaos of their careers. By the time Tom Hanks approached 70, that partnership had become the foundation of his daily life. Rita Wilson isn't just his wife, she's his closest collaborator, confidant, and emotional anchor. They've worked together on projects, supported each other through health scares, and navigated decades of fame side by side. Their experience with COVID-19 in 2020 reinforced that bond. Being hospitalized in a foreign country during a global crisis could have been terrifying. Instead, they faced it together. Both recovered, but the experience deepened their sense of gratitude and mutual care. Family extends beyond their marriage. Hanks has children from his first marriage and with Rita Wilson, and over time he's become a grandfather. That role has quietly reshaped how he spends his time. Instead of constant film sets and premieres, more of his life now revolves around family gatherings, visits, and ordinary moments at home. For someone who spent decades portraying fathers on screen, becoming a grandfather in real life adds a new layer of perspective. It's a reminder that life continues beyond career achievements. That the roles played in private matter more than the ones performed in front of a camera. He has spoken occasionally about the importance of stability, about creating a home life that feels normal despite extraordinary circumstances. That stability becomes even more valuable with age. As the body slows and health requires more attention, having a close inner circle matters more than ever. Friends who have known him for years describe him as someone who values loyalty and long-term relationships. He doesn't appear to surround himself with a large, constantly changing entourage. Instead, he keeps a relatively small group of trusted people nearby. That inner circle provides grounding, a reminder of who he is beyond the public image. A space where he isn't an icon or a legend, just a husband, father, and friend. As he approaches 70, the importance of those relationships has only grown. Fame may have defined much of his life publicly, but privately, it's the people closest to him who define his daily reality. And in this quieter phase, those relationships seem to matter more than anything else. Tom Hanks hasn't retired. He hasn't disappeared. He still works, but he works differently now. In his younger years, he often carried films on his shoulders. He would appear in physically demanding roles, shoot on location for months, and promote projects across the world. That level of intensity isn't necessary anymore, and more importantly, it isn't sustainable at the same pace. Now, he chooses projects with intention. Scripts are evaluated not just for artistic value, but for practicality. How long will filming take? Where will it be shot? How physically demanding is the role? These questions matter more with age and health considerations. They shape decisions in ways that weren't as urgent decades ago. He has also expanded his creative work beyond acting. Writing, producing, and voice work allow him to stay involved in storytelling without the same physical demands as leading roles. These avenues provide flexibility, a way to remain active in the industry while preserving energy. Voice acting, in particular, has been a consistent presence in his later career. The role of Woody in the Toy Story franchise connects him to audiences across generations without requiring the physical strain of traditional filming. It's work that can be done in controlled environments, at a pace that suits him. When he does take on acting roles, they often align with his age and experience. Characters with depth and reflection rather than relentless physical action. Stories that allow him to draw on decades of life rather than trying to recreate the energy of his 30s or 40s. There's also a noticeable shift in how often he appears. Projects are spaced out. Time between films is longer. This doesn't indicate a lack of demand. If anything, directors still want to work with him. It's more about balance. Choosing quality over quantity. Working carefully also means protecting health. Long days on set can be taxing, especially when managing a chronic condition like diabetes. Maintaining consistent routines while filming requires planning and discipline.
Meals must be timed.
Rest must be prioritized. Travel must be managed carefully. He appears to approach these challenges with realism rather than denial. He hasn't tried to maintain an illusion of endless stamina.
Instead, he adapts, adjusts,
continues working in ways that are sustainable. For audiences, the change might feel subtle. He still appears on screen with the same voice, the same presence, the same familiar warmth. But behind that consistency is a different pace of life. A different approach to work. At nearly 70, Tom Hanks isn't chasing roles to prove he can still do it.
He already has.
Now, he works because he still enjoys storytelling. Because he still has something to offer. Because creative work remains part of who he is. But he does it on his terms, carefully, thoughtfully, and with a clear understanding of what his body and time require. Reaching 70 is a milestone that naturally invites reflection. For Tom Hanks, reflection doesn't appear to come with regret so much as awareness. He has lived an extraordinarily full life.
Decades of success. Cultural impact.
Roles that defined generations. Few actors reach the level of trust and admiration he achieved. Fewer maintain it for so long. As he moves into his 70s, the focus seems less on building a legacy and more on understanding the one already created. He doesn't need to chase relevance. His work is already part of film history. Instead, he seems to be thinking about time, how to spend it, how to preserve health, how to remain present for family. Aging brings inevitable changes. Energy shifts. Health requires attention. The future feels shorter than the past. These realities don't necessarily create sadness, but they do create perspective. He continues to appear in public, but with less frequency. When he does speak in interviews, there's often a thoughtful tone. Not melancholic, just aware. He talks about gratitude. About the people he's worked with. About the unpredictability of life. Legacy isn't just about films. It's about how someone lived. How they treated others. How they navigated decades of visibility without losing themselves. In that sense, Tom Hanks has already secured something rare. A reputation for kindness and professionalism that extends beyond his performances. The years ahead will likely be quieter. Fewer projects.
More time at home.
More moments with family. Perhaps occasional films that interest him deeply. Perhaps more writing or producing. There's no dramatic ending here.
No sudden disappearance.
Just a gradual shift into a slower chapter of life. One that values health, stability, and connection over constant motion. For fans, seeing him age can feel emotional. He has been a familiar presence for so long that imagining a world without new Tom Hanks films is difficult. But for now, he's still here.
Still working. Still present.
He manages health carefully.
He works thoughtfully.
He spends time with the people who matter most. He carries decades of fame with quiet acceptance. And he continues forward, not at the pace of his younger years, but at a pace that allows him to keep going. That may be the most honest picture of Tom Hanks today.